Hello everybody and welcome back. Welcome to the Spider's Web with me, your host, Bee. I'm sorry I didn't get a video out at the end of January like I promised, but sadly life gets in the way. This subject tonight is one that's fascinated me for years, and just lately I've read a couple of accounts and I thought, I'm going to look into that a bit. I wasn't happy with the video that I'd put together anyway. I was only halfway through it and I wasn't finding it easy, so I thought I'd do this one instead. So get comfortable and settle in for strange disappearances in US national parks. Enjoy! Welcome to the vast and majestic landscapes of America's national parks. Spanning over 84 million acres, these protected areas are a testament to the country's natural beauty and diversity. From the scorching deserts of Death Valley to the towering peaks of the Rocky Mountains, and from the ancient forests of the Redwoods to the mangrove swamps of the Everglades, each park offers unique and awe-inspiring experiences. However, beneath the surface of these breathtaking landscapes lies a more sinister reality. Despite the best efforts of park rangers and search teams, hundreds of people have gone missing within these parks over the years. Some are never found, while others are discovered weeks, months or even years later, often with no explanation as to what's happened to them. So what drives people to venture into these unforgiving environments, and what are the factors that contribute to their disappearance? Is it the allure of adventure, the pursuit of solitude, or something more sinister? In this video, we'll delve into some of the strangest and most baffling cases of people disappearing in US national parks. "63-year-old Daming Zhu arrived in the USA from China in the late 1980s and became a professor of mathematics at the University of Oregon. He and his wife Shishayo loved travelling to Oregon's wilderness areas for day hikes, and both were very fit for their age. On November the 4th, 2007, Daming left for the Three Sisters Wilderness area to climb Olali Mountain. He never returned. Then, on November the 15th, one half of Sullivan's Trail book, up to page 157, was found, which included the Olali Mount hike on page 154. The other half had been found in his car. Apart from that, no clues were discovered in the large search. It was a beautiful sunny day with blue skies, perfect for a late autumn trip into the Cascades. Daming was dressed only for a day hike, with a white shirt and a light leather jacket, but no backpack. A couple also on a hiking trip, Stephanie and Paul Niedermeyer, happened to meet him near the peak at around 1:30 p.m. They said he only spent a few moments at the top, before quickly descending, appearing to be in a hurry. When they reached the trailhead parking lot, the couple saw a white Chevrolet Impala of semi-recent vintage parked there. They were surprised to see it, as the hiker, Zhu, they had encountered on the summit should have been back by now, unless he had decided to go to the Olali Meadows on the way down, as the trail forked. They agreed that the only logical assumption was that it belonged to another hiker on the French Peak Trail. By late afternoon, with the sun going down and darkness descending, there was still no sign of the car's owner, and the couple got a little concerned. The Niedermeyer's fears were proven correct a few days later. Daming failed to show up at home, and his wife reported him missing on the afternoon of the following day, November the 5th. On November the 6th, his car was found on bare flats near Terwilliger Hot Springs, and it contained his cell phone, water, and heavier clothing. Key pieces of his potential survival kit, like his jacket, had been left behind. The authorities didn't know what hike he planned, except that it was generally in the Cougar Dam area. So search and rescue focused on a wide area covering Olali Mountain, south of the Mackenzie Bridge, Cougar Reservoir and the Three Sisters Wilderness area. Over 60 mountain rescue personnel from Eugene, Portland Corvallis, Lincoln, Lynn and Deschutes counties, as well as Deschutes County Sheriff officials and Eugene Police, participated in the search. A UH-60 Black Hawk helicopter infrared flare was also deployed. It was thought that Darming must have taken the wrong trail at the junction and headed to Ollerley Meadows instead of the parking area. But surely he noticed how different that trail looked and that there was no meadow on the way up. It was only a mile to the meadows, and there was plenty of time to turn around. Efforts were made to find him on the Ollerley Meadows trail, and they found what they believed to be his tracks near Bear Flat. However, sniffer dogs inexplicably lost the tracks at this point. Later in the week following Ju's disappearance, the weather worsened, with temperatures dropping and rain and snow. Without adequate winter clothing, Darming's situation became very precarious in the early days of November. The sheriff in charge of the search stated the most significant challenge the lost man faced was the weather. It had been relatively mild up to that point, but on November the 8th, temperatures in the search area fell below freezing overnight. His family said he was a fit and accomplished hiker, but staying overnight in these conditions would be virtually impossible in a light jacket. On November the 10th, newspapers reported that rain and fog were hampering search efforts, and that the snow level was expected to drop below 4,700 feet overnight. Part of the search area was higher than that and expected to have some accumulation. On Monday, November the 12th, the official search was called off due to bad weather, but friends and volunteers continued to search. They had focused on between 50 and 100 square miles of thick forest, with 19 agencies, dozens of volunteers, and over 5,000 man-hours of searching. This is when they found the first half of the Sullivan Trail book. The other half had been found in his car, so why did Ju get lost if he had a map with him? It was found in a very rugged area of the French Peak Creek drainage on the south side of the mountain. The thinking was that Darming must have followed the trail to Bear Flat, then headed down French Peak Creek, where there is no trail. French Peak Creek is full of rocks, heavy foliage, trees, and is very steep and hazardous. The going is extremely difficult due to endless fallen trees, rocks and steep terrain. 1 year later, a group of 45 volunteer searchers spent 400 hours looking for the remains of Ju's body, but nothing was found. Shishayo, Darming's wife, said the hardest part was that she had no remains, nor a body to return to his family. Darming's demise is a sad tale. Despite a beautiful sunny day and a good map, he appears to have got disorientated and wandered off in the wrong direction to an unknown fate for some reason. Unfortunately, the weather turned bad soon after he was reported missing. Given the thick inaccessible forest around the French Peak Creek drainage, where his guidebook was found, it is likely his remains will never be discovered. So is this a simple case of hypothermia or something more sinister? Don't take the wilderness for granted, even if you are an experienced hiker. Darming took no equipment with him at all on this day hike, and this was probably his biggest mistake. In July 1981, 14-year-old Stacy Arras went on a 4-day group horse riding trip with her father George to Yosemite National Park in California. Stacy and the rest of the group stopped for an overnight stop in the Sunrise Meadows area of the park. At some point in the late afternoon, Stacy decided to go for a short hike without her father to take some pictures of nearby lakes. She was never seen again. Stacy's disappearance is a baffling case, because after a huge search in a relatively defined area, only a lens cap was found. No evidence of her skeletal remains, clothing or camera after decades have passed has ever turned up. Given the scale of the NPS case file that remains under wraps, was it just simply that she went off trail and got lost in the wilderness? The area around Sunrise High Sierra Camp and Sunrise Lakes is rugged, with granite boulders everywhere, and it can be treacherous if you hike off trail to take a picture. Was criminal activity or something supernatural involved? Many questions remain about this disappearance, and hopes that one day the Park Service will release further information to allow more detailed theories to be assessed and even a potential resolution to be proposed. For now, the case remains somewhat of an enigma. George and Stacy had planned a 4-day horse riding trip in the Yosemite area for some time. It was not unusual for the family to go hiking in the national parks, and after some personal troubles for Stacy, it may have been an opportunity for father and daughter to perhaps fix a strained relationship. They travelled to Yosemite on July the 17th, 1981, and met up with the other horse riders at 2 alumni meadows, together with the group lead, Chris Grimes. The group size is uncertain, with reports between 7 and 20 people. From there they rode around 4 miles to the Upper Cathedral Lakes, using the John Muir Trail, and stopped for some food at around 3 p.m. After riding a few more hours, they stopped at some Sunrise High Sierra Camp cabins, around 3 miles southeast of Tenaya Lake, and 1.5 miles from Sunrise Lakes. The group decided to freshen up after the ride, having planned to stay the night. Sunrise Camp is 9,400 feet above sea level, and the last one on the 50-mile High Sierra Camp Loop. 9 cabins provide beds for 34 guests, and they are set against a lovely alpine meadow facing Mount Florence and Mount Clark. Stacy cleaned up, showered and changed clothes. She told her dad that she would go for a walk towards the Sunrise Lakes to take some pictures with her Olympus camera. She was keen to stretch her legs after the horse ride, as she spent most of the day in the saddle. An older member of the group, Gerald Stewart, in his 70s, was sitting on a boulder about 100 feet away from the cabins, and Stacy thought it might be an idea to go walking with him. The relationship with Gerald is unclear, but it is likely that they had just met that day. However, he was also a Saratoga resident, so perhaps they knew each other before the horse riding trip. She asked her dad if he wanted to go with her, but he said he'd pass. Her last conversation with him related to her footwear, where he advised her to change from her flip-flops to hiking boots. She agreed that would be a good idea. She was wearing an off-white pullover windbreaker, white jersey blouse, leggings and grey hiking boots. Everybody saw her walk over to the boulder with Gerald and take some pictures. Subsequently, she told him she was keen to go to a nearby lake for some more shots, and he offered to accompany her. This was either a few hundred yards to the flooded Lower Long Meadow, or the longer walk to Sunrise Lakes, 1.5 miles away, which is at least 40 minutes from the camp. After a little while down the hill, around 20 minutes after they'd set off, the elderly man felt tired and had to sit down to get his breath. This was not surprising after a long day on a horse at an altitude of over 9,000 feet. Chris Grimes back at camp was tending to the horses in a corral and happened to see Stacy taking a picture. He watched her as she went a little further down the hill before the trees obscured her and he lost sight of her. This was the last time she was ever seen. After a while, when Stacy didn't return, Gerald got concerned, and he continued for a while in the direction that she'd gone, expecting to find her quickly. But she was nowhere to be seen, so he returned to the cabin area and gathered the group for a search. The horse riding group had no luck and reported her missing to park rangers. Gerald told park officials that he had spoken to a group of people coming from the direction that Stacy had taken, but they had not seen her, and that was very concerning. Either she'd gone off trail to take a picture or something else had happened. A very large search involving 100 to 150 people, including 67 Mountain Rescue Association volunteers representing most of the region's teams, and sniffer dogs were deployed over 10 days, starting on July the 18th. They concentrated on a 3 to 5 square mile area around Sunrise Lakes. 3 helicopters were also used in the search, with the park's contract chopper in the air for over 40 hours, but these operations were scaled back on July the 20th, when it was believed that the area had been well covered from the air. Ground searches began to be reduced from July the 22nd, and the official search finally ended after a week of activity on July the 26th, 1981. Despite the efforts of search and rescue teams, with over 8,000 man-hours and at a cost of $100,000, the only thing ever found was the lens cap from Stacy's camera, just inside the tree line from where she walked into the area by the lake. The search and rescue operation was one of the largest in Yosemite National Park's history. Sniffer dogs were unable to pick up any scent, and this was blamed on a lack of rainfall at the time that made the ground very dusty. There were no footprints or any other signs Stacy had ever been in the area. Rangers and searchers were puzzled, as after such a comprehensive search, trying to look into every crevice, rocky outcrop and body of water, there was zero evidence. The area is rugged and strewn with granite, but even if she fell somewhere, you would have expected the ground searchers or dog teams to find something like her Olympus camera discarded on the ground. Stacy's mother Carol was equally perplexed, saying that it was strange that even a small item like a gum wrapper or a wind cheater didn't turn up after all the efforts. The case file on Stacy is over 2,000 pages long, which is very large for a missing persons case. They are generally up to 100 pages, and many are 10 to 20 pages. The case is also being treated as a criminal investigation. The big question is, if foul play is involved, why is the case not being closed after so long, since she disappeared in 1981? That's a long time to keep the case open. Despite repeated requests under the Freedom of Information Act, access to relevant documents has been denied, and all related paperwork remains shrouded in confidentiality. This blanket secrecy raises troubling questions about the motivations behind it. In the late spring of 1999, under the vast California sky, the majestic Mount Shasta stood as a formidable yet beckoning challenge. It was here on May the 25th that Carl Lander, a 69-year-old seasoned mountaineer and former school board member from Orinda, California, alongside his two trusted friends and fellow climbers, Barry Gilmore and Milton Gaines, embarked on an expedition that would etch their names into the annals of mysterious mountaineering tales. Each of these men was no stranger to the rugged demands of the mountain. Their camaraderie had been forged through numerous climbs, and they shared a profound respect for the wild, untamed beauty of nature. Mount Shasta, a revered giant among California's peaks, presented them with its own unique set of challenges. The trio chose Avalanche Gulch for their ascent, a route known for its relative safety, yet demanding enough to test the mettle of even the most experienced climbers. As the sun cast its first light on the mountain, the trio set off. The weather was unusually warm for late May, with temperatures peaking at a balmy 77 degrees Fahrenheit. The warmth of the day belied the physical rigours that lay ahead on their journey. As experienced climbers, they knew well that even the south face of Shasta, considered the easiest route, demanded utmost physical endurance and mental resolve. The day began with light-hearted banter, the men sharing stories of their families and musing over future hiking exploits. Carl Lander, a man whose passion for mountaineering was matched only by his determination, had recently achieved a remarkable feat, scaling the tallest peaks in California. Yet as they approached their first major stop at the 50-50 Plateau, Lander expressed feeling unwell, a concerning yet vague admission from a man known for his robust health and endurance. That evening, under the cloak of dusk, Lander, still battling his undisclosed ailment, made a decision that would forever remain a point of conjecture and mystery. He chose to forge ahead, seeking to gain a head start towards Shasta Peak. His friends, respecting his experienced judgment, stayed behind, unaware that this would be the last time they would see Carl Lander. When dawn broke the next day, Lander was nowhere to be seen. Concern quickly turned to alarm when Gilmore and Gaines realised they could not catch up to their friend. The Siskiyou County Sheriff's Department was promptly notified, and a search operation of immense scale and urgency was launched. A heli ambulance scoured the skies while ground crews meticulously combed the Avalanche Gulch. The search party was a testament to human solidarity in the face of adversity, involving the California Highway Patrol, the National Guard, the United States Forest Service, and numerous volunteers on skis and foot. The terrain, devoid of thick vegetation or hidden crevices, offered little in the way of explanation for Landa's disappearance. Even Lake Helen, a potential site of interest, yielded no clues. As days turned into weeks, the absence of any sign of Carl Landa only deepened the mystery. Carl Landa at the time of his disappearance was in peak physical condition, a testament to his lifelong dedication to long-distance running and mountain climbing. He was last seen wearing practical climbing attire, black ski pants, a rust-coloured jacket, and boots equipped with crampons. His backpack contained essentials for survival, water and food. Yet none of these seemed to have aided him in whatever fate he met on that fateful climb. To this day, Carl Landa remains a missing enigma, a story whispered among climbers and locals alike. A man of 5 feet 9 inches, 150 pounds, with brown hair and blue eyes, he vanished into the very heart of the mountain he revered, leaving behind questions that the Siskiyou County Sheriff's Office, despite their exhaustive efforts, could never unravel. In the shadow of Mount Shasta, Landa's story lingers, a poignant reminder of nature's unfathomable mysteries and the thin line that mountaineers tread between the earth and the sky. On the afternoon of the 5th of December 1998, a family tradition turned into a harrowing mystery in the dense forests of Oregon. Derek Engebretson, an 8-year-old boy affectionately known as Bear Boy for his love of the outdoors, set out with his father Robert and grandfather Bob to find a Christmas tree near Upper Klamath Lake, about 30 miles north of Klamath Falls. Little did they know this excursion would end up with Derek vanishing, leaving behind a trail of questions that haunts the region to this day. Derek, a child seasoned in outdoor life, had been immersed in nature since infancy. His early days were spent in the wilderness, hunting with his father and mushroom picking with his grandfather. Pelican Butte, a dormant shield volcano east of the Cascade Range and towering over Crater Lake, was a familiar area to the young adventurer. The decision to go Christmas tree hunting that year was an impromptu one. Despite Robert's yearly enthusiasm for this family tradition, his wife Laurie had convinced him to opt for an artificial tree. However, a request from a disabled neighbour saw the trio venturing into the woods late in the day. Bob recalls the drive along West Side Road, warning of the impending darkness as they pulled into a turnout at milepost 12. They climbed into the pine forest, Derek bundled in a blue snowsuit, trailing behind his father, who instructed him to stay with his grandfather. But Derek, eager to catch up with his father, persuaded his grandfather to let him go. It was the last time he was seen. As darkness enveloped the woods, a frantic search ensued. Robert flagged down a motorist to call 911, but by then, Derek had disappeared into the thickening snow. Laurie, clinging to hope, camped out in a van near the turnout, her eyes playing tricks in the flickering light of a bonfire. Meanwhile, search efforts intensified, snowmobiles and dogs scouring the landscape. Derek's tracks were found, a snow angel he had made, and boot prints near his last known location, but a passing snowplough had erased any further clues. In the aftermath, a candy wrapper and a makeshift shelter were discovered, but whether they belonged to Derek remained a mystery. His family believed he might have reached the road and had been picked up by a stranger, a theory that the Sheriff's Department was reluctant to accept. The discovery of a hole in the ice on the lake and a child's footprint nearby fueled further speculation. Despite subsequent searches, Derek remained missing. 8 days after his disappearance, authorities informed Laurie and Robert that their son was likely dead. In the days that followed, the Engebretsons, along with volunteers, persisted in their search, braving sub-zero temperatures and a landscape that offered no answers. The community criticised the delayed response of the search and rescue team, which began hours after the initial 911 call. Suspicions swirled around Robert and Bob, even as they passed polygraph tests. The family was consumed by guilt and grief, their financial resources drained in the relentless pursuit of answers. In a chilling development, a letter arrived in 2001 claiming knowledge of Derek's abduction. Frank J. Milligan, a convicted child molester, became a suspect after his cellmate alleged Milligan had confessed to killing Derek. A confession from Milligan led to a search in Silver Falls State Park, but yielded no results. The mystery deepened when Milligan retracted his confession. Questions remained. Was Derek abducted, or did he succumb to the harsh elements? Could an animal attack have been responsible, or was there another, more sinister explanation? Over 26 years later, Derek Engebretson's disappearance remains a mystery. The question of what happened to Derek that December day in 1998 continues to echo through the forests of Oregon, unanswered. Silver Plume, Colorado, with a population of 200, is located in the heart of the Rocky Mountains. On September 7, 1987, Tom Young closed his Main Street bookstore and vanished with his dog Gus. Keith Reinhardt, a new resident of Silver Plume, opened an antique shop at the exact same location 9 months later. Keith closed his business for the day on August 7, 1988. After less than 2 hours, Keith Reinhardt had also vanished. Simply put, there were too many coincidences. Tom Young and Keith Reinhardt rented the same store. They both left the city with the intent to return. Keith was writing a book about Tom's disappearance when he himself mysteriously vanished. Keith Reinhardt moved from Chicago to Silver Plume with 3 goals in mind: to get in shape by mountain climbing, to overcome his fear of heights, and to start writing a novel. During his sabbatical, Keith decided to operate a summer tourist-orientated antique shop. If it was successful, he hoped to relocate there permanently with his wife. As Keith delved deeper into his research, he started to blur the lines between fact and fiction. His daughter Tiffany noted that Keith sometimes struggled to distinguish between reality and his writing. Keith's novel featured a character named Guy Gypsum, a fusion of himself and Tom Young. On July 31st, 1988, 2 hunters stumbled upon Tom Young's remains, along with those of his dog, in the mountains near Silver Plume. The investigation revealed that both Tom and his dog had died from gunshot wounds to the head. Just a week after Tom's body was discovered, Keith announced to the townspeople that he would be climbing nearby Pendleton Mountain. He was last seen walking in the direction of the mountain at 4:30 p.m, an unusually late start for a challenging 6-hour hike. Keith Reinhardt never returned. An extensive search effort ensued, involving search helicopters, over 125 men and 12 trained dogs. Despite the efforts, no signs of Keith were ever found. The complexity of this case highlights the strange coincidences and connections between Keith and Tom Young's cases. Dan Campbell, a 47-year-old man from Sweetgrass County, Montana, went missing in Yellowstone National Park on April 8, 1991. He was dropped off by his girlfriend at the Hell Roaring Creek trailhead, planning to hike to Jardine, Montana, to retrieve some illegally collected elk antlers. Campbell's disappearance sparked an investigation, with authorities initially suspecting foul play, possibly linked to disputes over the elk antlers. However, his family disputed this theory, pointing to an impending legal settlement that would have resolved his financial issues. Despite an extensive search effort, no signs of Campbell or his dog Freckles were ever found. The case remains a mystery, with various theories emerging over the years. Some speculate that Campbell might have got lost or injured in the park's vast wilderness, while others believe he might have staged his own disappearance. Campbell's disappearance is one of several unexplained cases in Yellowstone National Park, which has a reputation for being a challenging and unpredictable environment. Thelma Pauline "Polly" McAllister was born in Alabama on the 26th of February 1923 to parents Fred and Luella. She was one of 6 children. Those who knew Polly described her as friendly, intelligent and generous. She loved the outdoors and was an avid hiker. She'd previously worked as a teacher. Polly married Bob Melton, a man 20 years her senior, in 1975. The couple resided in Jacksonville, Florida, for most of the year, but spent each fall living in their Airstream trailer in North Carolina's Deep Creek campgrounds. Polly was a 2-pack-a-day smoker, on medication for nausea and high blood pressure when she went missing. Additionally, she was no longer permitted to drive alone for undisclosed reasons. While staying in North Carolina, Polly Melton was a frequent volunteer at the Bryson City Presbyterian Nutrition Center, where she served meals to elderly people. She reportedly never missed a day of work at the food bank. For this reason, it was undeniably odd when Polly chose not to sign up to volunteer on September the 25th, 1981. However, she offered no explanation for this decision. In another uncharacteristic move, she reportedly used the phone at the centre on the day before, the first time she'd ever done so in all of the years that she'd been volunteering there. To whom she made the call and what they spoke about is unknown. Neither her friends nor family could remember speaking with her on the phone that day. No long-distance charges appeared on the bill, suggesting the call was local. Polly went hiking daily, if the weather permitted, with her long-time friends Trula Gudger and Pauline Red Cannon. September the 25th was a beautiful day, so they decided to go for their usual walk together. Before leaving home, Polly prepared spaghetti sauce for the dinner she planned to have with Bob later that evening. Then she set out with Red and Trula for the Deep Creek Trail, a moderately challenging trail that Polly knew well and had hiked countless times before. According to her friends, nothing seemed out of the ordinary about Polly that day, except for the fact that she was walking unusually slowly. They teased her about this. Moments later, at approximately 4 p.m, Polly sped up and quickly passed them. When she was about 75 yards away, she walked over a hill and out of sight. This would be the last time anyone ever saw Polly Melton. Red and Trula kept to their own pace, assuming that they'd soon catch up to Polly. Yet bizarrely, when they crested the same hill themselves, she was nowhere to be seen. Notably, there was a parking lot near Polly's last known location. Their best guess was that she'd gone home, so they headed over to the Melton camper, arriving at 4:30 p.m. They learned that Bob hadn't seen her since she'd left to go hiking with them that afternoon. He began calling anyone who might know where his wife was, or had maybe heard from her, but this yielded no results. Trula and Red told their respective husbands that Polly was missing. The 2 men immediately went to the Deep Creek Trail and retraced the route that the women had taken, but they found nothing. They also questioned any hikers they passed along the way, but no one had noticed a woman matching Polly's description that day. Polly Melton was reported missing at 6 p.m, and an intensive search for her began. The trail was closed to the public for 4 days, during which 150 searchers and 9 K9 teams searched for Polly, covering approximately 100 miles of trails, creeks and forest. But there were no signs of a struggle or indications that anyone had erratically left the path in the area where Polly vanished. The only bit of information they had to work with were hits from the search dogs, who detected her scent on a downed tree along the trail. Park rangers dismissed this as a significant clue, however, believing Polly had likely just stopped to rest momentarily. Her friends and family were certain that she wouldn't have left the trail, as she was afraid of snakes. Foul play was not suspected, as law enforcement considered it implausible that the 5'10", 180-pound Polly could be abducted so quietly and without a struggle in such a brief window of time. And though her family and friends didn't believe it was possible, police began to suspect that she may have left willingly. Investigators also believed that Polly Melton was no longer in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. If she'd been in the park, the dogs would have found her. They were well trained, said Park Ranger Dennis Burnett. On October the 2nd, 1981, park officials told the press that evidence suggested Polly exited the park in a vehicle, probably of her own free will. If so, where did she go? And why? And who might have been driving? These are just some of the important questions that have yet to be answered in this case. Searchers and investigators noted some additional case facts. Most of Polly's belongings were left behind, including her medication, ID, money and purse. The only items she was known to have had with her, aside from her clothing, were a pack of cigarettes, her wedding ring and a diamond-studded white gold wristwatch. She was prescribed Valium as a muscle relaxant in 1977, but was no longer taking it when she vanished. But her husband was on Valium at the time and noticed that his pills went missing around the same time that Polly did. Bob was so distraught on the night of his wife's disappearance that he had to be hospitalised. Polly's mother, Luella, with whom she was very close, passed away in 1977. Polly felt this loss keenly and suffered through a dark period of depression, but by 1981 she was seemingly doing better. Trula and Red came forward to report part of their conversation with Polly during that final hike together. The women stated that they'd been teasing her about a man at the Bryson City Presbyterian Church Nutrition Centre, where she volunteered, saying that he was clearly interested in her. While Polly didn't deny this, she was hesitant to speak further about the unnamed man. This didn't strike her friends as significant at the time though, because Polly was generally a private person anyway. Red and Trula found her to be in good spirits otherwise that day. Tom Harris, a pastor at the church she attended, stated that he had reason to believe Polly was having an affair. However, he didn't elaborate on what made him think this. Additionally, he said that Polly had seemed sad recently, but not suicidal in his opinion. Polly's father, Fred, with whom she had grown close following her mother's death, visited her that month and found nothing unusual in his daughter's behaviour or mood. While Polly Melton's case was never officially closed, it quickly went cold due to a lack of evidence or leads. Then something strange happened a few months after she disappeared. On April the 14th, 1982, a cheque made out to Polly for the interest on a bank certificate was cashed at the Birmingham Trust National Bank in Birmingham, Alabama, where some of Polly's family lived. Unfortunately, the bank teller had no recollection of the person who cashed the cheque and could provide no description of the individual. The person's identity has remained a mystery, though for some, the story corroborated suspicions that Polly ran away and was still alive. A year after Polly's disappearance, Bob sold their Airstream trailer and decided to cut ties with North Carolina. Shortly thereafter, he was admitted to a nursing home in Gainesville, Florida, suffering from emphysema and heart problems. Neither Polly's friends nor any of her family ever heard from her again. And that brings us to the end of this video. Thank you so much for joining me once again, and I hope you all enjoyed this fascinating subject. It's frightening how many people have gone missing in national parks in the US. How can somebody be there 1 minute and gone the next? There are all sorts of scenarios that could be at play, but all of them mere speculation. And there are plenty of mysterious disappearances in the UK too, but that's for another show. So I wish you all the best until next time. Look after yourselves and each other, and don't forget, stay spooky.